Let's go.
Herd hierarchy.
Time is now. Let's go.
The top 10 NFL teams according to Colin.
Well,
Number 10.
If they beat the Saints, they can clinch their 4th straight division title. I've said it. I like their personnel. Baker Mayfield leads the NFL in touchdown passes over the last 2 years since he joined the Bucs. They're a big play offense with excellent running backs. Jason Light's a great GM. They've always got talent. When they've had good quarterback play like Brady and Baker, they can play with anybody. 5-1 over their last 6 games, blew the Chargers out. That was a real eye-opener. I don't think they can hoist a trophy, but they could certainly host a playoff game and knock off an injury-riddled Detroit, if possible. Bucks at 10.
Number 9.
I'm going to go Rams. Their offensive sluggishness in the first half is hard to explain. But their defense is really good and young, and it's getting better. They've held opponents under 20 points in 3 straight games. Matthew Stafford's having a very good year. Over his last 7 games, a passer rating of 105. They're a little Puka Nacua dependent, so I don't think they're a trophy team, but I have them at 9.
Number 8.
I would put the Chargers at 8 because their quarterback's younger and can run, and I think that mobility is the difference between the two teams. Justin Herbert, 99 passer rating, hyper efficient, never reckless, big with mobility. That gives them a slight edge, in my opinion, over the Rams. Also, 5 of their 6 losses have come to good teams. The Chiefs a couple of times, Ravens, Buccaneers. They're losing to the right teams. I have them at 8.
Number 7.
The Packers. I thought the Packers could hoist a trophy, but they're 0-5 against the Lions, the Vikings, and the Eagles. They're 11-0 against everybody else. So they're a bully against average to pretty good teams. They're not going to beat your Ravens. They're not going to beat your Chiefs, Bills. That's not who they are. 6 straight games without a giveaway, though, and I think that's coaching and Matt LaFleur. They have taken some attempts away from Jordan Love. They don't turn it over. They're kind of a power run team. I have the Packers at 7.
Number 6.
But, you know, Lamar Jackson's better than Jordan Love, in my opinion, so I have them at 6. Second largest rushing differential in a season in league history. They remain a run team. Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews allows them to pass as well, but number 1 scoring defense, number 1 total defense since week 11. You know I love this organization. Kind of holding your breath on what they look like in the January playoffs, but the Ravens at 6.
Number 5.
I thought Sam Darnold was amazing. I've got him at 5. They're tied for the most takeaways in the league this year at 31. That is the Brian Flores factor. The fact that Brian Flores isn't front and center for everybody from the Bears job to the Saints job, this defense does not have elite personnel, but they're putting up elite takeaway stats. That's a Brian Flores factor. By the way, Sam Darnold's the first quarterback in league history to win 14 games in his first season with a new team. Even Tom Brady did not do that. Maybe Darnold is better than Brady when you think about it. Number 4.
Number 4.
Detroit, stacked roster offensively, falling apart defensively. But, I mean, they have 5 games this year with 40 or more points and no turnovers. I mean, it's pretty easy for them. They're clever. They can play power run. They're getting Montgomery back. 4 straight games with 3+ touchdown passes. I think we all know the story on them. If they were healthy, they could win the Super Bowl. But we don't trust their defense going forward.
Number 3.
Philadelphia. They're 11-0 when Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown play. The number 1 total defense. They allow 4.8 yards a play. So that's pretty good in the NFL in this day and age. 4.8 yards a play. Their O-line and D-line combination is the best in the NFL. They got a great GM, and they got a roster to show for it. Do I worry about the concussion? I would worry about it if it was in 2 weeks. I don't worry about it now. I have them at number 3.
Number 2.
The Bills. The Bills have cut down on giving the football away. They only have 8 giveaways, and they've only allowed 14 sacks. So we always liked Buffalo, but we thought, they'll beat themselves. Well, they don't beat themselves this year. They don't turn it over. They don't give you sacks. Don't have a lot of negative plays. And they do it without a single 1,000-yard rusher or 1,000-yard receiver. So they are still somewhat too reliant on Josh Allen. But you know what? I like James Cook. I like Kincaid, Dawson Knox. I like their receiving core. Coleman's getting better. I got him at 2.
Number 1.
Same old Chiefs, best coach, best defensive coordinator, best quarterback, and arguably the best defensive lineman, Chris Jones. Let's just say this. It's the same team we've seen, except I think it's a better offensive version. It always, since Tyreek Hill left, it's a lot of patchwork at receiver. I mean, that's what they've been for 3 years now. And now they got Hollywood Brown back. They wish they had Rashee Rice, but that'll do. And Worthy's become a real player, and Travis Kelce. This is what they do. Because they play Mahomes, what they pay him, and they lost Tyreek Hill, this is the one unit they've tried to kind of figure out and bring in a guy for a year and move this guy over there. But you know what? Third team in NFL history to go 6 straight games without a turnover, so that's very rare. So you get
Okay, let's talk about this. At this point, ranking these teams like this just feels wrong. Like, the Eagles were 2, then they dropped down after rolling the Dallas Cowboys, and the Bills go up after rolling the Jets. Like, that doesn't make any sense. And the Vikings have been playing great. They beat the Packers, a team that Colin had as, like, top 4 or top 3, whatever it was exactly. I think, like, top 4 or 5. The Vikings win. And now they're behind the Lions after the Lions just beat the 49ers, where he thinks Brock Purdy shouldn't even get a contract. Like, it just doesn't make sense. You know, it's too muddled. It's too messy at this point. So at this point, I'm really just looking at it as, who do I believe can win the Super Bowl? Because trying to figure out who should be ranked second or first, like, it just doesn't matter to me. And honestly, like, this might anger some people, and people are going to call me a hater. I'm a hater. I'm putting the Bengals in there. I'm putting the Bengals in top 10, and I'm going to probably remove, I don't know, man, it's a toss-up between the Bucks or the Rams. And I think the Rams will be trouble in the playoffs. I think they can be playoffs, or it can be trouble in the playoffs. I've been talking about that. Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Sean McVay. I keep saying Matthew Stafford. I keep saying those 4 names, like, again and again and again. But I mean, I understand the defense and the issues, but, like, Joe Burrow is balling, man. That offense is balling. And so the way how I kind of look at it is, if the Cincinnati Bengals played the Rams, who do I think wins? The Bengals. If the Bengals played the Buccaneers, who do I think wins? The Bengals. So again, this isn't like predictions of who will be the top 10 or who will make it the farthest or like that. That's not what it is when I say that. But if you're saying, hey, you got to play the Bengals, let's say you're a big, don't get too lost in this example, but let's say you're a big Chiefs fan or a Bills fan or an Eagles fan, who would you rather play? The Rams or the Bengals? The Buccaneers or the Bengals? You're going to want to face those other 2 teams. I'm pretty confident in that. And don't be like, oh, this so-and-so, they own the Bengals. Like, I get it. I know. Of course. They own them. Everyone owns everyone. Yada, yada, yada. But so that's where I'm standing with that. And again, I think the Buccaneers will still also not be like an easy out in the playoffs. So again, this is not me railing on the Buccaneers. I just posted a video, really defending and praising the Buccaneers. But I'm just trying to put this all together. The Chargers. The Chargers are such a fascinating team to me as well, because I am such a believer in what they're building. I'm just not so sure it's built yet. And when you see them get a really big, easy, convincing win against the Patriots, you're like, ooh, this is what's possible. But you're like, yeah, but it is the Patriots. And so I do believe that the Chargers, this is what kind of how I view the Chargers at this point, is I think the Chargers can beat the Chiefs, the Bills, the Eagles, all the teams in front of them. But they will most likely be able to do so at a slightly lower rate than the other teams can. But it's not by a substantial amount. Like, the way how you're kind of sometimes ranking these teams, like, let's just say the Giants, for instance, right? We know that that's a bad team. If they played the Chiefs or the Eagles, these top 3 teams, the Bills, they probably, if they played 10 times, the Giants probably win. Surprisingly, like, maybe like once or twice, actually. Like, probably more times than you would initially think. Maybe even 3 times, quite frankly. Probably not 3. For the sake of argument, let's just say 1 or 2 times. And I would say that the Chargers, if they play, say, the Chiefs or the Bills or the Eagles, they probably win maybe like 4 out of 10 times, which is a substantial, but that little point swing now goes on the other side. So it's like, yeah, you play the Chiefs, you play the Bills or the Eagles or whatever, like those teams are going to win 60% of the time. And it is enough to really tip the scales. And so that's kind of like the lens that I'm kind of looking at it through, where, and sometimes it almost feels like the percentages won't even necessarily make sense. But that's kind of where I think the Chargers kind of are, where I actually really fully 1000% believe that they can beat these top teams and beat them way more consistently than people imagine. But when it comes down to it in the playoffs, it's kind of like, where's the dice going to roll? Like where is it going to land? And when you have these other teams like the Chiefs, the Bills, the Eagles, the Lions, I just think that those teams can win more reliably, more consistently at a higher clip. Like in a weird way, and again, I understand that this doesn't necessarily mathematically make sense. It feels like the Chargers can beat, say, the Chiefs 4 out of 10 times, but the Chiefs can beat the Chargers like 7 out of 10 times. And, it's just like, I'd have to, really work through that to kind of explain why that like kind of makes sense, even though, again, it's not lost on me that it mathematically does not. And then that's kind of like where I put the Packers. I think the Packers absolutely, because now, to be clear, I think the Packers, the Ravens, the Vikings, the Lions, the Eagles, the Bills, and the Chiefs are all Super Bowl contenders. I think they all can win the Super Bowl. I would put the Packers slightly outside of that in terms of this ranking of where the other teams are, because I do have more trust in those teams showing up and playing. I have a little bit of PTSD of watching what the Packers did against the Vikings. Like I did find that showing very disappointing, and I did not feel good about that. That made me, and again, I'm not like selling the stock. I'm not saying, oh, they clearly proved that they're not good, they're not ready, they can't win a Super Bowl. I'm not going that far either. But it did. It made me kind of like take a step back and be like, this is not how they should be playing, yet they are. Like, what's the problem here? What's actually the situation here? And I just think a team like the Ravens, I just think that they are still, even though they're ranked 6th here, like I still think that they're easily one of the scariest teams out there. Because again, in any given moment, Lamar Jackson has the ball in his hands and you're just like, dude, literally anything could happen. Like, and we say things like, oh, anything could happen. No, like literally anything can happen when that guy has the ball. Anything. And it's the same thing for Josh Allen. Those are really the only two quarterbacks right now that when they call hike and have the ball in their hands, like truly anything can happen. And it's not to say that they're the two best quarterbacks, but like there's just nothing that they can't do on the field. If they need to scramble for 45 seconds, I wholeheartedly believe that they could find a way to scramble for 45 seconds. Okay? Like I just do. Those right now, they are the two most athletic freaks imaginable. So to me, those are the scariest quarterbacks. But then you have Patrick Mahomes, who's going to be the most consistent, and so which also makes him scary, but just in a different way. Because you're certainly not comfortable if Patrick Mahomes has the ball, because you're like kind of like anything can happen. But in terms of just physicality, that's where I'm going to give Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, the extra leg up on that. So the Ravens, that's why putting the Ravens at 6, it feels way too low or high, depending on how we're looking at it. Where you're just kind of like, what? Like, nah, I don't know about that because of the Lamar Jackson effect more than anything. And the Vikings have obviously been playing unbelievable. Like, again, it feels insulting to put the Vikings, who are competing for the number 1 seed in the NFC and the second best record, and yet we're going to be like, they're the 5th best team. Like, that just doesn't make sense. And again, I don't live and die by the record either, as you saw me putting the Bengals up there. But it's just like, these numbers, like, I have a tough time with numbers at this point. I mean, I always do, honestly, but especially right now in the season, especially how these teams are playing right now. And the Lions, yeah, I do understand. I do think that the defense is concerning and there are some issues. You can't just completely sweep that under the rug, but their offense is also still so suffocating and so like domineering, where you're just like what do I do here? What do I do here? Yeah, we could put points on this team, but can we stop their offense? And there's that feeling. There is this true feeling. You felt this even in the game against the 49ers, where the 49ers were kind of keeping pace with the Lions, and it was kind of exciting, but it was kind of like, hey, we're going to keep scoring. We're going to keep going for it. Even if we don't get it on fourth down, we're still going to keep going and going and going and going. So you better hope that you score every possession, because the moment you give us that advantage, whether it be a turnover on downs, missed field goal, or just, 3 and out, whatever it is, a punt, like, it's potentially over. You got to score. You got to put up the points. If you don't, better luck next year. And that's what the Lions bring. And that is a real thing. That is a real thing, a real effect that the offenses of the opposing teams will undeniably feel. Undeniably feel. And again, what can you say about the Eagles? I mean, the Eagles literally have their third string quarterback in there and they're balling out. Their third string quarterback's balling in a way where you're like, huh, could he be a starter? Does the Eagles look even better with the third string quarterback? Like that's how good the Eagles are right now. That's how motivated, that's how focused, that's how prepared they were. I praise the other teams who, when they had to go to backup quarterbacks like the Packers, and said, like, they really stepped up big. They made plays for their backup quarterback. And that's exactly what the Eagles did. The Eagles were 100% ready to go. They understood what they needed to do. They didn't mess around. The Cowboys were actually playing like, semi-hot, if you could say that about them with Cooper Rush. They were definitely racking off some wins. They beat the Buccaneers, who Colin thinks the Buccaneers could beat the Lions. And the Eagles were like, it's not even close. It's not even close. So, I to try to put the Eagles below anyone at this point, like, makes no sense to me. And then you have the Bills. Again, to me, it really all comes down to Josh Allen. They definitely have some nice offensive weapons. Their defense is, maybe not as special as you would want it to be, but also maybe not as bad as other people want to make it out to be as well. But again, it all comes down to me for Josh Allen. It's just Josh Allen, Josh Allen, Josh Allen. And do the players around him, do they make the plays? Do they catch the ball when he throws it to him? Right? Do they ever help take off any of the load off of his shoulders? That's what the Bills, to me, always come down to. Always comes down to. And that's what we saw even just last year in the playoffs. And then, of course, the Kansas City Chiefs. Yeah, I mean, they are obviously the most consistent team in the NFL. They have the most experience. At the end of the day, you're going to trust them more. And that's always been my prevailing thing about the Kansas City Chiefs, is at the end of the day, you're going to have more trust, specifically in Andy, Mahomes, and Spags. And by virtue, Kelsey, but at the same time, he is like right at that edge of being like Dunzo. So to me, it's like, you do know without a shadow of a doubt, like Mahomes, Andy, and Spags, you just know that they are not going to be a liability. They're not going to bring the team down. They're not going to be unprepared. They're not going to do anything that puts the Chiefs, in a deficit, being outcoached, outplayed, whatever it may be. And that obviously goes tremendously far, like that's obviously going to help you big time. But yeah, I don't know. I wonder if this is going to be Colin's last time, or if he'll do it going into the playoffs. I don't remember what he does typically. I don't know if this is the last herd hierarchy of the season. If it is, it's definitely been fun, definitely been interesting. But yeah, I really thought these numbers would make more sense as the season goes on. And as the season goes on, went on, it really, really didn't. But, at this point, the teams that I have the most confidence in would be the Packers, the Ravens, the Vikings, the Lions, the Eagles, the Bills, and the Chiefs. And I would even put the Packers just actually like ever so slightly down when comparing it directly to the other 6 teams. Mainly just because it feels like those other teams are playing better in this moment of time, and the Packers can absolutely kind of get back into that. But those to me feel like the safest bets in terms of who can truly come away with the Super Bowl victory. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Colin's herd hierarchy? Any problems with this? Any teams that you would put in, leave out? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.